Kurtop here, and these are 100 most ancient mysteries of humanity that still haven't been solved. Egypt and the Swastika. The more I studied the archives about the Ahnenerbe, the clearer it became. It was important for the Nazis not just to find ancient artifacts. They needed to inscribe themselves in the great past, to create a line where the Aryans are not just a people, but direct heirs of the most ancient civilizations. Egypt occupied a special place in this system, not because of the pyramids and mummies, but because of the symbols and rituals. They called the swastika the solar cross. For them, it was not just a sign, it was a code. The swastika is indeed found in the cultures of India, Tibet, China, and in Egypt, at least in the form of indirect symbolism. The movement of the sun, the four directions, the cult of Ra, they found confirmation of their ideas in this. Sometimes far-fetched, sometimes very convincing. Before the war, some researchers associated with the Ahnenerbe actually visited Egypt, unofficially. They were interested in ancient books, funeral rituals, ideas about the afterlife, the way the Egyptians linked power, magic, and order. The Nazis perceived it as a system, not a religion, but a control mechanism, as if the ancients knew something that had been forgotten, and they came to restore it. I looked at photographs from those expeditions, people in SS uniforms standing by temples, stone bas-reliefs decorated with runes. It was not just imitation, it was an attempt to create their own religion, new, but based on symbols that inspire power. When Hitler spoke of returning to the past, he did not mean Prussia. He looked further, into millennia, into civilizations that disappeared but left a trace, and he wanted this trace to lead to them. Lost history. A long-awaited fragment of the famous Dead Sea Scrolls, dating back 2,700 years, was recently found. These scrolls are parts of ancient manuscripts discovered near the Dead Sea between 1946 and 1956, including 972 documents in various ancient languages. Moreover, a third of them contain biblical texts. The rest are extra-biblical, dating back to the era of the Second Temple. Interestingly, one of the three rare fragments dating from the First Temple period, which was considered lost, was discovered in the U.S. state of Montana. The owner of this ancient artifact said that his mother purchased the papyrus as a souvenir in Jerusalem in 1965. This fragment is of interest to scholars because it contains only 4 lines in Hebrew, starting with the words, "They went to Ishmael." Researchers suggest that this was an instruction to the addressee. The name Ishmael in biblical history is associated with the firstborn of Abraham and his maid Hagar, and is quite popular. After a detailed analysis, experts confirmed the authenticity of the scroll and its age. Now, this historical artifact is in Israel in the Antiquities Authority. However, many such scrolls are still hidden in private collections around the world. Memorial marks on the bricks of history. The Mehrangarh Fort in Jodhpur is one of the most majestic structures in India, but its beauty hides dark pages of history. On the inner gate of Loha Pole, 15 imprints of women's hands are still visible, silent witnesses to the tragic tradition of sati. Sati is an ancient Hindu ritual according to which widows were supposed to burn on the funeral pyre of their husbands. Sometimes women did this voluntarily, but more often they were forced. This practice was officially banned by the British in 1829, but in India it continued until the 20th century. In 1843, after the death of Maharaja Man Singh, his wives left handprints on the wall before stepping into the fire. However, this is not the only case in the history of the fort. In 1731, 6 wives and 58 concubines of Maharaja Ajit Singh also committed suicide in the flames. Tragedies have been going on since the fort's foundation. In the 15th century, Saint Chidyawale Baba cursed Rao Yoda, saying his land would suffer from perpetual drought. To lift the curse, the king ordered a resident of Megwal, Rajaram, to be walled up alive within the fort's walls. But the curse still seems to be in effect. Maharajas have died here, tourists have fallen, and in 2008, hundreds were killed or injured during a stampede at the Chamunda Devi Temple. Ancient city in Micronesia. This amazing complex is built on artificial islands that are connected by a network of canals, which is why it is often called the Venice of the Pacific. The complex includes about 100 artificial islets. The islands were created from massive basalt blocks, laid in such a way as to form walls, platforms, and buildings. Each structure is surrounded by water channels, which makes this place even more mysterious and impressive. The age of Nan Madol is estimated at about 1,500 years, but some studies indicate that the first buildings could have appeared much earlier. Archaeologists suggest that the construction of this complex began at the end of the first millennium AD, possibly under the leadership of local rulers, the Saudeleur dynasty, who used Nan Madol as a ceremonial and administrative center. The main mystery of Nan Madol is how the inhabitants of the island of Ponape were able to build such a complex and massive city with limited technology and resources. Each basalt block used in the construction weighs from several hundred kilograms to several tons. Transporting and installing such heavy blocks would have required considerable effort and knowledge. The basalt was quarried on the other side of the island, which meant it had to be transported across difficult terrain and water. Considering that the ancient builders did not have modern technology, this feat seems almost impossible. Some researchers suggest that the stone blocks could have been transported using rafts and ropes, while others point to the possible use of a system of levers and ramps. However, none of these theories fully explain how the ancient Micronesians managed to lay and align these massive structures so precisely. Nan Madol is also surrounded by many legends and myths. Locals believe that the city has magical properties and that it was built using supernatural forces. Some myths claim that Nan Madol was home to spirits and was used for rituals related to ancestor worship. To this day, this ancient city inspires awe and respect among the inhabitants of Ponape, and they avoid visiting Nan Madol after sunset, considering it a place of residence of spirits. Jade Mask. Archaeologists have made an important discovery in the dense rainforests of Guatemala in a place called Xochcutam. They discovered a woven jade mask believed to have belonged to an unknown Mayan king who lived about 1,700 years ago. This find may shed light on Mayan religious devotion and royal succession during the early Classic period. It also supports the hypothesis that members of the Maya royal families may have been enslaved by more powerful Mesoamerican dynasties. In addition to the mask, archaeologists found a skull, teeth, a skull-shaped stone box, and numerous offerings at Xochcutam, including shells, bones, and shiny pieces of jade. Alexander Tocquevinin, an expert in Mayan epigraphy, helped decipher the glyphs on the bones and identified the human remains as the Itzam ruler Kokai Balam. And the deity depicted on the mask turned out to be Yax Wayab Chakak. He is the incarnation of the Maya god of storms. New petroglyphs in Colorado. Archaeologists from Poland have discovered ancient indigenous paintings and reliefs on the border of the states of Colorado and Utah in the United States. Working for over a decade, this team has been studying 3,000 years of Pueblo culture. Research is being conducted at the Castle Rock Pueblo complex on the Mesa Verde Plateau. The site is popular among archaeologists and tourists due to the ancient settlements and rock art created by the Pueblo culture. Pueblo agricultural communities developed one of the most advanced pre-Columbian cultures in North America, including the construction of multi-story stone houses and rock art. The team discovered previously unknown galleries and petroglyphs dating from different historical periods. The oldest of them, depicting warriors and shamans, date back to the 3rd century AD. Most petroglyphs date from the 12th and 13th centuries and include images of shamans, warriors, animals, and hunting scenes. In the 15th to 17th centuries, when the area was inhabited by the Ute tribe, hunting scenes appeared on the panels. In later centuries, images of horses appeared, reflecting the Spanish conquest. Palanca's explorations led to the discovery of unknown petroglyphs 800 meters above the cliff settlements, which were used for astronomical observations and calendar determinations in the 13th century. Treasures of Ghana. 2 leading British museums have agreed with the Ghanaian government to return gold artifacts stolen in the 19th century. Last May, the Asante Hene, King of Ghana, met in London with the directors of the British Museum and the Victoria and Albert Museum. It was decided to transfer 32 gold exhibits taken by the British 150 years ago to Ghana for 3 years. In 1874, the British plundered the royal palace in Ghana. In 1896, another military operation took place, leading to further robberies. The museum's joint statement acknowledged that the seized items have cultural and historical significance to the Asante people and are linked to British colonial history. Items being returned include a golden peace pipe purchased at auction for £85, as well as rings, scabbards, soul discs, knives, and necklaces. The British fear that this agreement could become a precedent for the return of other items captured during the colonial wars. Personally, I am very glad that finally valuable exhibits from museums are gradually beginning to return to their homeland. New Mayan Ruins. Archaeologists are finding more and more Mayan ruins thanks to new technologies and satellites that help to detect structures hidden under dense forests. As Texas Tech University archaeology professor Brett Houck told a NASA conference, scientists have discovered more Mayan sites in the last 10 years than in the previous 150 years. The main tool that helps in this is LiDAR, laser scanning technology. LiDAR allows you to see through dense forest vegetation and reveal structures that were previously hidden. With the help of this technology, archaeologists are finding more and more ruins in what is now Mexico, Guatemala, and Belize. One such project is a study in northeastern Belize, where a team of scientists is studying an area of 650 square kilometers. In just a few days, scientists have discovered 28 new large sites. The technologies of the past used by the Maya to manage water and farm may still be useful today. Tim Murtha of the University of North Carolina at Charlotte noted that the Maya adapted to changing climate conditions by creating systems of terraces and reservoirs to combat droughts. These ancient techniques may hold important lessons for today's changing climate. Faces on stone. A drought in the Brazilian region has caused water levels in the Amazon River to reach record lows, leading to the discovery of faces and other figures engraved on ancient stone that is more than 2,000 years old. These petroglyphs, including images of animals and other natural forms, were found on the banks of the Rio Negro at an archaeological site known as Ponto das Lajes, Place of the Slabs. Researchers estimate that the paintings are between 1,000 and 2,000 years old. The stones, in addition to images of faces and water, also have grooves, indicating that the site was used to create stone tools. Archaeologists discovered 25 groups of engravings on one rock. The find indicates that this place was used for sharpening various tools. In addition, fragments of ceramics were found at this site. Although Ponto das Lajes is recognized as an archaeological site, the petroglyphs have not yet been studied. What other secrets do you think the Amazon is hiding? Share your thoughts in the comments. Artifacts in a grave. When I first saw this find, I had a feeling that someone had deliberately planted artifacts there. It looked so implausible. A burial from World War II, in Poland, in the Tukola forest. Everything is standard. The remains of a German uniform, equipment, a token, but next to the body are stone tools from the Mesolithic era, Neolithic ceramics, and Roman coins. Real, verified, not a fake. I tried for a long time to understand how this is officially explained. There is only one version. They say it's a coincidence. It just so happened that ancient tribes used to live in this place, and the soldier died right there. Well, yes, of course, a coincidence. Just like the fact that this place had been an area of interest for Nazi archaeological intelligence since the beginning of the war. They were obsessed with ancient civilizations, not just an interest, but a real mania. The Ahnenerbe sent expeditions to Tibet, Iran, Africa, but in Europe they also actively sought confirmation of their theory that the Aryans were not just a people, but the heirs of an ancient world empire. And now, in one grave, there is an SS man and objects that are 2,000 years old. I can't help but think, what if this is not a coincidence? What if it was part of some program, testing, moving artifacts, or even guarding? The Nazis attached ritual significance to objects of the past. They believed that ancient artifacts were keys, not to history, to power. Perhaps this soldier did not die by accident. Perhaps he died because of what he was guarding. Pot of burnt porridge. In one of the oldest villages in Germany in Oldenburg LA7, archaeologists discovered a unique treasure, fragments of an ancient pan. This find tells us about the culinary preferences of our ancestors more than 5,000 years ago. They also cooked porridge. Lucy Kubiak-Martins, a renowned archaeobotanist, shared some impressive details. Chemical analysis of the shards showed traces of grains such as spelt and barley, as well as protein mari seeds similar to quinoa. Interestingly, sprouted grains were found, which indicates ignorance of ancient methods of grain drying. This is the first time traces of cooked food have been found on pottery in Neolithic Germany. prototypes taken to the USA and USSR. Night. In the silence of the archive storage, I leaf through old documents. On the cover of the folder is written, Operation Paperclip. Inside are lists of German names with notes in English. Werner von Braun, Hubertus Strughold, Arthur Rudolph, Nazi engineers and doctors who did not stand trial after the war. Instead of prison, new offices and laboratories awaited them on the other side of the ocean. Summer 1945, the war has just ended. The American military secretly takes hundreds of Third Reich specialists out of defeated Germany. Thus begins Operation Paperclip, a program that sent about 1,600 German scientists and engineers to the United States. The Americans diligently erase mentions of their Nazi past. Here is von Braun, a former SS officer who became a key engineer at NASA. Dr. Strughold, a participant in monstrous experiments on prisoners, is now called the father of space medicine in the United States. Engineer Rudolph, the creator of the V-2 rockets, who used slave labor from concentration camp prisoners, now designs Saturn rockets for America. And this is only the tip of the iceberg. Along with them, German aircraft designers, chemists, and dozens of other former Nazis settled in the United States. The Americans took away not only people, but also captured developments. Tons of secret drawings, rocket parts, experimental samples of new technology. Any knowledge that gave an advantage in the new war turned out to be more important than morality. Meanwhile, the Soviet Union is conducting a similar hunt. In the fall of 1946, Operation Osoavi Akim is carried out. In one night, more than 2,000 German engineers with their families are forcibly sent deep into the USSR. There, in closed facilities, former enemies work side by side with Soviet engineers. No one cares about past convictions, only the skills acquired in the service of Hitler. A few years later, rockets created with the participation of these German specialists will launch the Soviet satellite into orbit and send the first man into space. Many of the greatest breakthroughs of the Cold War, from ballistic missiles and jet aircraft to man's flight to the moon, grew out of this dark legacy of the Third Reich. The defeated Nazi genius was invisibly present in the achievements of the new superpowers. Nazi engineering did not disappear, it simply changed its banner. And along with it, part of the immoral ideology leaked out. The end justifies the means. Science serves power, even if there are crimes behind it. In words, the world condemned Nazism at Nuremberg. But in fact, the victors willingly used the fruits of its labor. This is the other side of victory, which they preferred to remain silent about. Sometimes I wonder, did we really win? Or did we just take what they created and integrate it into our world? If the technology, methods, and even people of the Third Reich became part of our future, does that mean we really rewrote it, or just continued it under a different flag? The disappearance of the ancient civilization. 900 years ago, one of the world's largest civilizations, Cahokia, disappeared. New research has challenged the old theory that drought and crop failure were the cause. The Cahokia Mounds, located near modern-day St. Louis, were a thriving settlement with a population of about 5,000 people. By 1400, the site was deserted, and the reasons for the mass exodus remain a mystery to archaeologists. Archaeologists analyzed the soil of Cahokia, studying the carbon isotopes left behind by plants that grew during the mass exodus. The results showed that the ratio of carbon-12 to carbon-13 remained stable. This indicates that there were no significant changes in the local vegetation and does not support the version of crop failure. It is known that the inhabitants of Cahokia were inventive and may have had the skills to irrigate and store crops. They also had a varied diet, including fish, birds, deer, fruits, and nuts, which would have ensured their survival even if some food sources were lost. So why did they abandon Cahokia? Archaeologists suspect it was a long process caused by external factors. To better understand why, scientists plan to create a database of paleobotanical evidence and conduct experiments with growing ancient crops in controlled conditions. Rare coin in Jerusalem. Israeli archaeologists, during excavations near Jerusalem, discovered a unique artifact, part of an ancient silver coin, the age of which is estimated at 2550 years. This find represents one of only 6 coins of this type found in Israel. The coin belongs to a group of very early coins minted in the 6th-5th centuries BC outside Israel in ancient Greece, Cyprus, and Turkey. This artifact was created in an era when coins were just beginning to be used, and its discovery provides important information about the transition from the weighing of silver to the use of coins as a means of payment. The coin discovered was deliberately cut in two, indicating that it was used as a weighted piece of silver in the 4th century BC. Although coins were already in circulation at that time. One side of the coin shows a pattern made with a square die. This suggests that coins with raised images appeared later thanks to the development of more complex minting technologies. Unique bronze belt buckle. Czech archaeologists have discovered a bronze belt buckle from the early Middle Ages in South Moravia near Břeclav, depicting a snake devouring a frog-like creature. This discovery, dating back to the 8th century, may shed light on the spiritual life of people of the pre-Christian period. Such jewelry was worn by the elite of East Central Europe. It was part of the costume of the Avars, a nomadic people in the Carpathian Basin, as well as neighboring peoples. Archaeologists found it while excavating a settlement of the early Slavs. The buckle, featuring a snake and a frog-like creature, is part of Germanic, Avar, and Slavic mythology, possibly related to a creation myth or fertility cult. This motif can symbolize the end of a cycle and the beginning of something new. Similar buckles have been found in different parts of Central Europe, indicating their important role in the religious life of the people of that time. Tomb in Tel Aviv. During construction in Palmacum Park near Tel Aviv, an ancient tomb with many artifacts was found. The Israel Antiquities Authority published a video showing clay vessels, bronze arrowheads, and spearheads. These ritual offerings are approximately 3,300 years old, dating back to the time of Ramses II. Archaeologist David Gelman suggests that the people buried with weapons may have been warriors or ship guards. Gelman considers the find surprising since the cave remained untouched for thousands of years. This is reminiscent of footage from a movie about Indiana Jones. Underground objects are preserved in their original form, as if ancient people left them yesterday. Ancient sword in the river. A medieval sword was recently discovered in the depths of a Polish river, which experts say may have links to the Vikings. This sword is decorated with a mysterious inscription and is one of 8 similar artifacts found in Poland. The discovery was made during deep-sea exploration in the port of Włocławek, near Torun, a UNESCO-protected city. The sword, which had survived centuries of corrosion, was dated to the 10th century AD. This period is extremely significant for the history of Poland, linking the beginning of the formation of the state with the Piast dynasty. The sword could have witnessed the birth of the Polish nation. Historically, swords of this type are associated with northwestern Europe, suggesting Scandinavian or Frankish origin. However, the exact roots and connection to the Vikings remain a matter of debate among historians. Of particular interest is the inscription U Valfberth, found under layers of corrosion which may indicate the name Ulfbert. This name appears on swords found in northern Europe dating from the 9th to 11th centuries, adding to the mystery of the sword's history. Technologies. When recalling the technological developments of the Third Reich, the most common references are to the V-1 and V-2 rockets. Indeed, these were the first ballistic missiles in history that hit cities and, perhaps, set the direction for the entire future space program. But this is only what became public, what the world saw. At the same time, work was underway in closed complexes on projects that still cause controversy. One of the most discussed is the Haunebu project. These were the developments of disc-shaped aircraft. In shape, they were like flying saucers. According to descriptions, they were machines with a gravity engine capable of vertical takeoff and reaching speeds that were inaccessible to aviation at that time. Diagrams, signatures, internal drawings, all of this exists. Perhaps these were just concepts. Perhaps something more. One of the key figures in this topic is Victor Schauberger, an Austrian engineer who studied vortex flows. His idea was that energy could be obtained not by burning fuel, but by controlling natural flows of water and air. The vortex as a source of power. He believed that nature had already invented the ideal form of movement, and man only needed to learn to copy it. The Nazis knew this, and apparently, they used it. The peculiarity of all these projects is that they did not look like weapons for the front. They were not created to turn the tide of the war. They were made as if for another purpose, not for victory, but for transition. This feeling is difficult to explain, but it is there, as if someone expected that these machines would be needed not in 1945, but later. Of course, most of these developments did not reach the testing stage, but their presence speaks of the scale of ambitions, of the desire to break out of limits, not figuratively, literally. In these drawings, diagrams, ideas, one could read the desire to find a way out when all other roads were already blocked. Name of Jesus Christ. While studying the remains of a man from Sudan, scientists at the University of Warsaw discovered a religious tattoo with a Christian symbol. These remains were found near the Ghazali Monastery dating back to the Middle Ages. On the leg of the deceased, who passed away about 1,300 years ago, a tattoo was discovered depicting a chrisma, a monogram of the name of Jesus Christ created from the Greek letters chi and rho. In addition, the Alpha and Omega symbols were depicted nearby. This symbol first appeared in 324 AD during the reign of Emperor Constantine. Alpha and Omega are the beginning and ending letters of the Greek alphabet, symbolizing the idea of God as the beginning and end of everything. An interesting fact is that the tattoo is located on the right leg because since it is there, according to scientists, that a nail could have been nailed during the veneration of Christ. This religious marking indicates the man's Christian faith. However, it is not established whether he was a monk from the Ghazali Monastery, since his remains were found in a nearby cemetery reserved for local residents. According to the analysis, he was 35, 50 years old at the time of death. At the time, the region known as Nubia included parts of modern Egypt and Sudan, and Christianity was the main religion. Despite the fact that the remains were found 7 years ago, the unique tattoo was only recently discovered and is only the second known case of tattooing in medieval Nubia. Gloomy Burial. In Spain, archaeologists discovered a unique burial about 6,000 years old. 2 massive stone tombs were the burial place of more than 20 men, women, and children. These finds are distinguished by unusual funeral rites. The flesh was removed from the bodies of the deceased immediately after death, and the bones were broken in several places. Scientists found multiple fractures of the hands and traces of cuts on the bones, which indicates the removal of flesh with stone tools. This could have been done to speed up the process of decomposition of the bodies, but the true reasons remain a mystery. It is possible that some bones were used as relics or in funeral rituals involving cannibalism, which also characterizes the Upper Paleolithic in northwestern Europe. Echoes of an ancient battle. In Andalusia, archaeologists have discovered a unique artifact associated with Julius Caesar and the ancient Ibero-Roman city of Ipsca. The find is a lead sling ball on which the name of Caesar and the name of Ipski are abbreviated. This is the first time in the Iberian Peninsula that such a clear inscription of the name of Caesar and the name of a Roman city from Spain has been found on such a shell. The discovery was made thanks to the work of experts from various research institutions in Spain. The ball was found in the Montilla region in Andalusia, where, according to historians, the famous Battle of Munda could have taken place in 45 BC, where Caesar encountered the sons of Pompey. The ball itself is shaped like an acorn with pointed ends, measures 4.5 centimeters in length, 2 centimeters in width, and 1.7 centimeters in height, and weighs about 71 grams. It has Ipskie and Kes clearly engraved on it. This artifact is an example of the ancient Greek and Roman practice of inscribing metal-slying projectiles, known as glandes inscripti. To create these projectiles, clay molds with notches were used, which made it possible to obtain relief inscriptions. These inscriptions usually contain the name of the manufacturer, military leaders, legions, or locations. Underground rituals. Hidden deep in the mountainous region of central Anatolia lies the ancient underground city of Ursini. According to legends based on local traditions, Ursini was carved into the rocks during the Getian kingdom around 800 BC. The city was intended for protection from enemy invasions and bad weather. Ursini extends 4 levels deep into the ground, including living quarters, public plazas, and even a small underground temple. A unique ventilation system consisting of long, narrow ducts provided fresh air. In addition, the city had wells for water extraction and places for storing food. The most mysterious part of Ursini is the Hall of Shadows, where, according to legend, mysterious rituals were held. The walls of the hall are decorated with complex reliefs depicting mythical creatures and symbols, the meaning of which still remains unknown. Historians believe that Ursini may have been used as a temporary refuge during periods of war or natural disasters, but some studies suggest that the city may have been a permanent residence for a special segment of the population. Roman mosaic in Turkey. In the Turkish province of Mardin, archaeologists discovered a Roman mosaic during an investigation into illegal archaeological excavations. The excavations were carried out in the countryside of the Uzunkaya region in an area known as Kela Hanma, Ladies' Castle. Archaeologists discovered that the area had suffered significant destruction and numerous illegal excavations, prompting them to more thoroughly explore the area in search of ancient artifacts. Researchers found a mosaic floor belonging to Villa Rustica, a walled village estate that included a central building and ancillary structures. The mosaic, covering approximately 100 square meters, features intricate designs including fish scales, geometric shapes, trees, waterfowl, octopuses, fish, mussels, seals, and aquatic plants. This Roman courtyard contains various architectural remains, including living quarters and a necropolis, dating from the 5th to 7th centuries. Black granite slab. Heraklion, once one of the greatest ports of ancient Egypt, disappeared under the sea after a devastating earthquake in the 1st century BC. Its existence was long considered a myth until French archaeologist Frank Godiot discovered the lost city in the early 2000s in Abu Qir Bay, off the modern coast of Egypt. The most striking find was a massive black granite slab on which the name of the city and details of its connection with the ancient Egyptian gods were carved. Along with the slab, archaeologists found dozens of sunken ships, remarkably well-preserved statues, temples, and many artifacts, including jewelry, coins, and personal belongings of residents. Excavations are ongoing, and each discovered object sheds light on the role of Heraklion as a vital center of trade and religious life. The city, submerged in the sea abyss, remains a reminder of how natural disasters can forever change the course of history. Unicorn horn. Let me introduce you to the life of a medieval unicorn. This creature, although mythical, faced the cruel attitude of humanity. People hunted unicorns for their magical horns, which were believed to have unique properties, such as the ability to purify water and remove poison from food. Unicorns were believed to exist according to the testimony of many ancient scientists, including Aristotle and Ctesias, as well as great minds such as Leonardo da Vinci. In the Middle Ages, unicorns personified purity and wisdom. Their horns became a symbol of prosperity and could serve as an indicator of food poisoning among the aristocracy. But how do you find a unicorn horn in a world where these creatures don't exist? This question has been answered through the use of the horns of other animals such as rhinoceroses or walruses. Most popular, however, are the tusks of narwhals, animals from the Arctic whose curled tusks have been mistaken for centuries for the horns of unicorns. Travelers and hunters secretly obtained these horns and sold them to Europeans as the horns of mythical creatures. Thus, merchants and great rulers like Lorenzo de' Medici and Queen Elizabeth I paid huge sums for these tusks, considering them symbols of power and protection. Even the Grand Inquisitor Thomas de Torquemada did not travel without a piece of such a horn, believing that it could save his life from heretics. With the development of science and the progress of research methods, belief in the miraculous properties of unicorn horns has subsided, and now they remain only exhibits in museums, a reminder of how legends and reality were intertwined in human history. Rare giant book. Here is one of 12 giant books from the 18th century written in Spanish. Its size is impressive, almost a meter in length. These books were created for religious ceremonies and contain detailed scripts for the services. Leather binding, wooden covers, pages made of tanned animal skin. All this made the book not only durable but also a symbol of the greatness of the church. Such manuscripts were intended for use in churches where priests and choirs could read the text from afar. That is why the letters are so large. Today, this rarity is kept in the National Autonomous University of Mexico. Scientists and restorers carefully study it, trying to preserve it in its original form. These books are a real window into the past, allowing you to see what liturgical texts looked like and what the attitude to writing was in the era of colonial Latin America. Book of Kels. The Book of Kels is a medieval manuscript housed in the Trinity College Library and is one of Dublin's main attractions. This manuscript contains the four Gospels in Latin and canon tables written on parchment. The book measures 33 x 25 centimeters and consists of 340 pages. It was created at the end of the 8th, beginning of the 9th century, and research has shown that it had 4 illustrators. The peculiarity of the manuscript is that each letter has its own unique design, color, and meaning, like a secret code that has yet to be deciphered. The book takes its name from Kels Abbey, where it was preserved from the Vikings in 814. It is believed that work on it began during the life of St. Columba and continued for 2 centuries after his death. Historians offer several versions of the origin of this manuscript. According to one of them, it was created on the island of Iona and later transported to Kels Abbey. Another version says that writing began on Iona but was completed in Kels. There are suggestions that the manuscript was created in England or even Scotland. Despite the variety of theories, the Book of Kels remains one of the most mysterious and magnificent works of art of the Middle Ages. With colored masks and golden tongues. In the historical area of Albanas in Egypt, a team of Spanish archaeologists, led by Dr. Maite Mascoro and Dr. Esther Pons Malado from the University of Barcelona, made a significant discovery. Scientists have discovered ancient rock-cut tombs, as well as a number of valuable artifacts, allowing for a more in-depth study of the history of this region. A team of archaeologists has found tombs that date back to the Ptolemaic and Roman eras, revealing a unique burial method. One of the most amazing finds are terracotta statues of Isis Aphrodite, decorated with crowns of leaves, which are an important addition to the study of the art of that era. The excavations also uncovered Roman-era mummies adorned with gilded and colored funerary masks. An interesting feature was the discovery of golden tongues in the mouths of some mummies, which indicates ancient burial customs designed to keep the deceased capable of conversation in the afterlife. Adel Lokasa, head of the Central Authority of Antiquities of Middle Egypt, stressed the importance of finding a ruined building with unique designs depicting plants, vines, and animals. These images provide valuable insight into the culture and life in Albanas in ancient times. The Führer's Last Teeth. When I read about the Argentine bases and Hitler's escape, there was always one question left inside. Is there any direct evidence that he really died in 45? In April 2024, the FSB published a photo that answered this question. The picture shows a jaw. The remains, officially recognized as those of Hitler. They are kept in a cigarette box. 9 teeth. Everything is authentic. French forensic expert Philippe Charlier compared this jaw with X-rays from 1944. The match is absolute. Moreover, traces of cyanide were found on the metal of the dentures. This confirms the version of suicide. Poison, capsule, shot. Everything as in the official sources. It's a strange feeling. We have been looking for conspiracies, theories, legends about the escape for so many years, but everything turned out to be much simpler. No tunnels, doubles, submarines, just a jaw, a dusty archive, decades of silence. As if no one wanted this topic to have a final point, maybe because reality is not as spectacular as myth. Ancient thousand-year-old axes. In the northern part of Poland in Kochiewo, treasure hunter Denis Konkol, using a metal detector, discovered an astonishing find. 5 axes from the Bronze Age. These artifacts lay in the ground for more than 3,000 years. It is worth noting that in Poland, independent excavations with a metal detector are prohibited without special permission. Therefore, the discovery was immediately reported to the authorities. These bronze axes, discovered at a depth of 20 to 30 centimeters, are of particular value since such finds are rare in this area. Archaeologists have suggested that the axes may be associated with the Baltic culture and are characterized as the Tautush type. It is also suggested that the axes could have been part of a ritual offering, which speaks to the complex trade and religious practices of the communities of that time. This find is not only historically valuable, but also reveals new aspects of the cultures that lived in Poland in the Bronze Age. In the near future, the artifacts will be delivered to the Archaeological Museum in Gdansk for more detailed study and preservation. Underwater base in Argentina. A secret Nazi submarine base off the coast of Argentina has long been the subject of rumors and theories, but recent research appears to support the theory. Researchers have uncovered evidence of a German U-boat hideout in a remote area of the Argentine coast. These bases, some say, may have been used to hide submarines that carried Nazi officers and supplies to South America after the war. The discovery includes the remains of underground tunnels and shelters that may have served as both submarine staging areas and hubs for intelligence activities. The finds include metal structures, pieces of equipment, and old maps showing possible U-boat routes along the coast. These sites may have been part of a Nazi plan to create secret havens where their elite could hide after the collapse of the Third Reich. Argentina, known for its neutrality during the war and close ties to former Nazis, was an attractive haven for fugitive German officers. U-boats such as the infamous U-530 and U-977 docked off the coast of South America in the final days of the war, raising the possibility that such bases may have existed. Roman legionnaire shield. The shield found in the collapsed tower of the Dura Europos fortress is surprising in its preservation. The colors remain bright and the dimensions are 105.5 centimeters in height, 41 centimeters in width, and 30 centimeters in depth due to its semi-cylindrical shape. Made of wooden planks, 1.5, 2 millimeters thick and 80 millimeters wide, laid in 3 layers. The shield is covered with leather and its weight with the umbon, a metal hemispherical plate in the middle, is about 8 kilograms. On the top of the shield there is a Roman eagle. On the sides, winged female figures with wreaths of winners, and below a lion causing tenderness with its appearance. The shield was discovered at Dura Europos, a city captured by the Persians in 256 AD. It is assumed that the Romans removed the umbo and transferred it to another shield, since the scutum, the rectangular shield of the legionnaire, was hardly suitable for fortress walls. All other shields found there are oval in shape. Unfortunately, there is no photograph of the back of the shield, but there is only a newly made base from restorers. When found, the shield was damaged and divided into parts. Restorers recreated it but had to make it more curved than it was originally. The umbon is a metal plate on the shield that protects the warrior's hand. England's oldest scientific instrument. Discovered in England, a palm-sized copper quadrant dating back to 1311 was used to tell time. This artifact is 15 years older than Chaucer's famous astrolabe from the British Museum. Researchers point to the rarity of medieval English instruments and their importance for scientific understanding of the era. The device is estimated at $130,000, $190,000, $190,000. It is being offered at auction along with valuable books, manuscripts, and a 17th century silver microscope made by Antony van Leeuwenhoek. Quadrants are believed to have come to Europe from Muslim Spain at the end of the 13th century. In these devices, daytime was divided into 12 hours, the duration of which varied depending on the season and latitude of the place. The first hour began at dawn. Noon occurred at the end of the 6th hour and sunset at the end of the 12th. This made summer hours longer than winter ones. Quadrants were the tools of traders, clergy, and students. It is known that Queen Isabella, wife of Edward II, received several of these devices as a gift in 1358. Quadrant determined the time of day by the altitude of the sun using a trigonometric formula that was accurate at the equator. Despite the errors, the device was useful not only for determining time, but also for solving mathematical problems related to measuring distances and heights. Spanish Stonehenge. This amazing megalithic monument, known as the Spanish Stonehenge, is located on the banks of the Tagus River in Spain. Its age is estimated at about 7,000 years, which makes it 2,000 years older than the famous Stonehenge in England and older than the Egyptian pyramids. The complex consists of more than 100 vertically installed granite stones, forming a circle and ellipses. Officially, this object is called the Guadalperal Dolmen, and its purpose still remains a mystery. Scientists suggest that it could have served as a place of rituals, a temple, and possibly an astronomical observatory. The stones are arranged in such a way that their orientation is related to the position of the sun at certain times of the year. This confirms that the ancient builders had a deep knowledge of astronomy. For a long time, the dolmen was underwater due to the construction of a dam in 1963, and only a recent drought allowed archaeologists and researchers to take another look at this amazing object. What inspired ancient people to create such a grandiose structure? trace of the Amber Room. I have heard about the Amber Room since childhood, the most mysterious loss of World War II. Taken away, hidden, dissolved somewhere between the fronts. There are dozens of versions. There are almost no traces left. But last year, news appeared that forced us to reconsider everything. Polish historians said that they had found a new trail, archives, evidence, old routes for moving valuables, and everything points to one thing. The Amber Room could have been transported deep into Poland. Perhaps to one of the castles, to a tunnel, to a mine. It has not been established for sure. But the fact is that a trail that was considered long dead has resurfaced. It wasn't even this that caught my attention. It was the reaction. As if someone really didn't want this topic to be raised again, there were attempts to hush it up, to challenge it, to push it aside. And the more I think about it, the more clearly I understand. The Amber Room is not just a lost artifact. It is a marker, a signal that much more disappeared in that war than we usually think, and some of it is still missing. The deepest ancient tunnel. In China, they want to reach Cretaceous rocks that are 140 million years old. The task is ambitious. It is planned to drill through 10 layers of earth and reach a depth of 11,000 meters, which will become a national record. Work started in May of this year. While Russia wants to resume work on the Kola super deep well, China is already drilling in full swing. Let me remind you that the Soviet Kola well project, although it was not completed, made important scientific discoveries and planned to drill the earth to a depth of more than 15,000 meters. Work on the Kola Peninsula began in 1970 and continued for 2 decades. At a depth of 7 kilometers, the team had to face difficulties. Layered rocks got stuck in the equipment. Despite this, the final depth of 12,226 meters was achieved, but the project had to be closed in 1990 due to an unknown explosion. Now, China is looking to further explore the Earth's interior and plans to use its new borehole to study earthquakes and predict their occurrence. The project also aims to gain a deeper understanding of the internal structure of the Earth and its evolution. This opens up new opportunities for the development of technologies and solutions applicable in different industries. Let's hope that China, having modern technologies, will be able to find something interesting for the world of archaeology. Earliest depiction of a kiss. Are you ready to dive into the world of a real archaeological detective story? Today, we have a special episode about the oldest kiss in the history of mankind. Yes, you are not mistaken. We are going on a journey to the origins of romance and perhaps even herpes. Do you know where the first kiss in history originated? Researchers from the University of Copenhagen found traces of it in Mesopotamia in the ancient Near East, and that was about 4,500 years ago. Scientists say that people were already practicing kissing back then, and this may even have contributed to the spread of herpes. It sounds a little scary, but it proves that kissing has been an important part of our lives for thousands of years, across cultures and regions. Imagine, guys, in ancient Mesopotamia, people used clay tablets for writing, and some of them described kissing as part of romantic intimacy and friendship. And even our closest relatives, bonobos and chimpanzees, also kiss. Here is your proof that kissing is not just our whim, but the basis of our communication and relationships. That's just interesting. Could the herpes simplex virus be transmitted through these very early kisses? Ancient Mesopotamian medical texts mention a disease that resembles herpes in symptoms. Of course, we can't be 100% sure it's herpes, but the resemblance is amazing. It turns out that both romance and disease connect us with ancient people much more than we could imagine. Viking and the Cross. In the south of Sweden, near the city of Linköping, archaeologists were exploring an old quarry, an ordinary place where you would hardly expect discoveries, but on the top of the hill among the stones they came across a strange structure, a lonely burial. A circle of tightly packed stones, in the center, a stone coffin. It stood high, alone, overlooking the plain, as if the one lying inside had to look at something even after death. The coffin dates back to the 10th century, a time when Sweden was on the border of 2 worlds. Paganism was still strong, but Christianity was already penetrating life, and this burial is a reflection of this transition. Inside lay a man, with him an axe and a knife. Remnants of fabric, probably from ritual clothing. Everything suggests that he was from the top of society, perhaps a warrior, perhaps a representative of the nobility, but the way the coffin itself was arranged is no longer Scandinavian tradition. The stone cladding, orientation, location on the top of the hill, all this is already under the influence of Christian symbolism. Such hybrid burials are rare. Most are either completely pagan or already designed according to all the rules of the new religion. Here is a transition, a mixture of rituals. The last pagans still bury with weapons, but they already look at the cross, or at least recognize that times are changing. This man died on the border of eras. He no longer believed in Thor as they believed before him, but he did not accept Christ as his grandchildren's children will accept him. History that is not in textbooks. Not long ago, archaeologists found evidence that in ancient Troy, long before the Iliad was written, they were already drinking wine. This is not just a theory or a guess, but real chemical evidence that confirmed that even ordinary people in the territory of Troy not only drank wine, but also used it in everyday life. For researchers, this was a sensation, since in ancient times only the elite could usually afford the luxury of drinking wine, but in Troy it was available to all levels of society. Research has shown that the cult of wine was so important to the inhabitants of Troy that vessels in which it was drunk were found throughout the city, from rich palaces to simple residential areas. But what is even more interesting, the fermentation method used in Troy was so unique that it resembles more complex and advanced civilizations of that time. And now, thanks to this research, we can confidently say Troy was not just a legend. It was real, and its culture was much more complex and progressive than we could imagine. Ancient Russian bagpipes in the shape of a bird. Recently, archaeologists have discovered an amazing musical instrument in Veliki Novgorod, a leather bagpipe bag in the shape of a bird from the 12th century. This is the first such find in the territory of ancient Rus, which changes our understanding of the musical traditions of our ancestors. The bagpipe bag is made of the finest leather. Its length is about 72 centimeters, width 45. The most unusual thing about the find is the manufacturing technology. The leather was glued in 2 layers without the use of threads, which ensured tightness. This is absolutely atypical for that time. Historians have previously found individual parts of bagpipes in Novgorod. For example, in 2015, they found a playing pipe, and in 2018, a blowing pipe. But a complete one-piece bagpipe in the shape of a bird has been found for the first time. This means that Novgorodians did not just use musical instruments borrowed from other cultures, but had their own tradition of making them. By the way, the shape of the bird could have had a symbolic meaning and was possibly connected with ideas about the spiritual world or natural forces. Similar traditions are known in other regions of Eastern Europe. For example, in Belarus and Poland, the bagpipe is still called duda and koza. Piri Race Map. Created in 1513 by the Ottoman admiral and cartographer Piri Race, this map is one of the most famous cartographic artifacts of the Age of Discovery. Although only a fragment of the map survives today, it is housed in the Topkapi Palace in Istanbul and was discovered in 1929. The map is of particular interest because it contains a partial copy of a now-lost map by Christopher Columbus, making it an important historical document. The Piri Race Map depicts parts of the Atlantic Ocean, including the coasts of Europe, Africa, and South America. It is a remarkably accurate depiction of South America for the early 16th century, as well as details of the Caribbean and the islands of Hispaniola and Cuba. One of the interesting features of the map is that Cuba is depicted as part of the Asian mainland, which is likely due to early misconceptions about the geography of the New World. Another puzzling detail is the southern portion of the map, which has been interpreted as an early version of Terra Australis, a hypothetical southern continent that was believed to exist at the time. This adds further intrigue and debate about the possible sources of information used by Piri Race when compiling the map. Perhaps he relied on older maps or used accounts from sailors of his time, making this artifact even more significant and mysterious to researchers. Neolithic Swiss knife. On the border of Germany and Switzerland in the Wangen-Hinterhorn area, archaeologists have found an unusual object, a Neolithic knife with a wooden handle. Length, 7.3 centimeters. Blade, flint. Handle, wood, secured with birch resin, and on the side, a hole for carrying. The whole design resembles something like an ancient multi-tool. And indeed, the find has already been called the first Swiss knife in history. The tool dates back to the Neolithic era, approximately 4,300 to 3,500 years BC. It was found at the site of the Finn culture, a society that lived near swamps and lakes in the territory of today's southern Germany and northern Switzerland. People here built pile houses, farmed, kept cattle, used copper products, and even knew how to use fabric. The knife from Wangen is simple, but it contains the whole essence of the time: convenience, reliability, versatility. This is not a ceremonial object, not a weapon, not an ornament. This is a tool that was used every day, and it is these types of finds that are important.
The risen Telmon. This unique Atlantean from the Temple of Zeus in the ancient city of Agrigento in Sicily is one of the most impressive examples of monumental sculpture of the 5th century BC. The temple, built in the Doric style, was considered one of the largest temples of the ancient world, and its architecture reflected the power of Greek civilization. The Telmons, which acted as supports, had a symbolic meaning depicting the titanic force supporting the sky or the enormous weight of an architectural structure. These giant statues, about 7.5 meters high, were impressive both in their detail and size. One of the Telmons was restored and installed in its original place, demonstrating the complexity of the engineering and artistic solutions of the ancient masters. But there are myths and mysteries surrounding the Atlanteans. Some researchers believe that the images of the Titans could reflect ancient myths about the confrontation between the gods and giants, and their position in the temple symbolized their conquest. Others believe that such sizes and shapes could have been used as images of extraterrestrial beings, which the ancient inhabitants believed in.
10,000-year-old chewing gum. 10,000 years ago in what is now Sweden, a group of teenagers chewed birch tar, similar to children chewing gum today. They could not even imagine that in the future, scientists would analyze their chewing remains and find out many interesting facts about their diet, lifestyle, and even health. 3 pieces of birch pitch used as glue in the Stone Age were found in the 1990s at a site called Husby Cleve. Microbial DNA analysis of the resin showed high levels of bacteria associated with gum disease, such as Treponema denticola and Streptococcus aeruginosus. The study of these samples showed that the ancient teenagers suffered from caries and periodontal disease and also ate deer, trout, hazelnuts, and processed fox and wolf fur. Scientists have also found traces of birds and other animals, indicating their use as food and the processing of bones into tools. Traces of mistletoe were found in the gums of the specimens, suggesting the plant's possible use in medicine or as a poison for arrowheads. The discovery provides a unique insight into the lives of hunter-gatherers on the west coast of Scandinavia 9,700 years ago, allowing us to learn about their diet and dental problems. And we are only talking about very old chewing gum that children chewed. And thanks to modern technologies, they can already tell so much about the lifestyle of people who lived 12,000 years ago.
Treasure older than the Iron Age. Researchers have finally uncovered the mystery of 2 unusual artifacts from the gold treasures of Valena. A pair of pieces of jewelry, partly of extraterrestrial origin, have been found in Iberian Bronze Age treasures. The dull bracelet and the rusty hollow hemisphere decorated with gold turned out to be forged from metal that fell from the sky in the form of a meteorite. The discovery was made by Salvador Rovira Loren, former head of conservation at the National Archaeological Museum of Spain. His work showed that metalworking technologies and techniques in Iberia 3,000 years ago were more advanced than previously thought. The Treasures of Valena cache includes 66 items found in 1963 in what is now Alicante. These pieces are considered a prime example of Bronze Age jewelry in the Iberian Peninsula and Europe. 2 pieces of jewelry, a small hemisphere and a bracelet in the shape of a hrivnia, have elements that archaeologists have called iron. This posed a problem since the Iron Age on the Iberian Peninsula began around 850 BC, and gold jewelry dates back to between 1500 and 1200 BC. The difference between meteorite and terrestrial iron is the high nickel content of meteorite iron. Despite the rust, the results of the study showed that the hemisphere and bracelet were made from meteorite iron, dating back to approximately 1400 to 1200 BC.
Stone cubes. Not far from Albuquerque, New Mexico, a group of tourists came to the edge of a canyon. At first glance, they are ordinary rock formations, but the longer you look, the more you get the feeling that something is wrong. The edges of the cliffs are perfectly straight. The edges are smooth, as if they were cut not by time, but by something sharp. In some places, the stone masses form clear cubes. Each weighs about 100 tons. There are no signs of processing, but there is no chaos of nature here either. Everything is too geometric. Comparisons immediately began online. Someone remembered the Bimini Road in the Bahamas, mysterious stone slabs going underwater. Someone, the megaliths of Baalbek. But still, the main reaction is the same. It looks wrong, too right to be natural, too unwieldy to be man-made. Scientists, of course, can explain a lot. Weathering, crystal geometry, pressure, faults. But visually, it is not convincing, because when you stand next to these forms, you do not get the feeling that nature did this. The question arises, if it is really artificial, then who did this and why? This is not the first and not the last place where nature seems to accidentally depict someone's work. But sometimes there is a suspicion that everything is the other way around, that it is not nature that imitates technology, but we who have not yet understood who was here before us.
Voynich manuscript. One of the most mysterious manuscripts in history, it is an illustrated codex written in an unknown language or code that has not yet been deciphered. According to carbon analysis of the parchment, its creation dates back to the period between 1404 and 1438. Despite research, its origin, authorship, and purpose remain unsolved, which gives rise to many theories and guesses. The manuscript is named after the Polish antiquarian Wilfrid Voynich, who acquired it in 1912. It consists of more than 240 pages with cryptic texts and illustrations that depict bizarre plants, astronomical diagrams, strange people, and unknown chemical processes. The unique language of the manuscript has no analogues, and the font and structure of the text have led to the emergence of many hypotheses. Some scholars suggest that it may be a coded message created using sophisticated cryptography, while others believe that the manuscript is a description of a natural or artificial language. There are theories that the manuscript may have been a hoax, created to confuse scientists and seekers of ancient knowledge. Other versions suggest that it is a scientific or medical reference book, perhaps devoted to alchemy or botany. Some even believe that the Voynich manuscript is a work of speculative fiction or mythopoetry, which is still waiting to be deciphered.
Beads of the Silk Road. Archaeologists have studied unique beads from the tomb of a mysterious woman nicknamed the Red Princess of the Silk Road. The burial was found in Xinjiang, China, about 15 years ago, but it has recently attracted special attention due to its unusual jewelry. The age of the find is more than 2,000 years. Experts examined 8 bright red beads and found out that they were made of rare Mediterranean corals. Analysis showed that the material was brought from the shores of the Western Mediterranean. This speaks of the long distance and amazing trade relations of ancient China, because corals were considered a luxury at that time and were valued almost as much as gold and precious stones. Scientists suggest that these decorations came to Central Asia along the Silk Road, a trade route connecting the East and the West. Apparently, the beads were not just decoration, but a symbol of wealth, prestige, or power of a woman. The real existence of the biblical king Hezekiah. The only mention of King Hezekiah was previously only in the Bible. He is considered the 13th king of Judah from the dynasty of the House of David. A recent discovery by archaeologists indicates that this king actually existed. They found a mention of him on a stone artifact from the 8th century BC. A fragment of limestone with a mention of the king was found by archaeologists in a pile of garbage near an artificial pool in the Tunnel of Siloam. The discovery was made 10 years ago, and the discovery of this inscription took place a couple of days ago. As you can see, many finds have to be discussed several times. First, about how researchers find artifacts, and later, who they belong to and what their history is. On a clay fragment, scientists were able to decipher the text in ancient Hebrew. The inscription mentions and confirms the reality of King Hezekiah and his achievements, which were described in the Bible. This king was mentioned several times in stories related to the construction of pools and tunnels. Let me remind you that a piece of limestone was found in the pool. The inscription was incomplete and hard to read. Scholars have reconstructed it as Hezekiah made a pool in Jerusalem. The word bath is clearly preserved. This tablet may have been a monumental inscription on one of the public buildings. This find has 2 important discoveries. The first is that the Jewish kings left commemorative inscriptions about themselves just as the Eastern rulers did. It used to be thought that the ancient Jews did not do this. And the second important point proves that the Bible was written on the basis of Jewish historical documents. That is, these are not just inventions of preachers, but real stories, albeit slightly modified from the history of mankind. Footprints in stone. In 1952, in Texas, in the Paluxy Riverbed, workers were clearing the stone and came across a chain of clear prints. These were dinosaur footprints, large, elongated, in some places almost a meter long. There were many of them. It seemed that ancient lizards really walked along this place, one after another, leaving a path in the stone behind them. But nearby they noticed something strange, prints similar to human feet, long with the outlines of fingers. Some of them overlapped the dinosaur tracks. It was because of this that the place became a source of controversy. Some people saw a sensation in the find. Supposedly, this was proof that people and dinosaurs existed at the same time. Scientists were more cautious. Some explained the shape of the tracks by erosion, others, fakes. There are known cases when such human tracks were cut directly into limestone, then sold to tourists. There is still no exact version. But regardless of the controversy, the painting itself is the imprint of movement left 100 million years ago, and that is already amazing enough.
Baghdad Battery. A unique and truly enigmatic archaeological artifact discovered in 1936 in the Hujut Rabu area near the ancient city of Ctesiphon in Iraq consists of three components: a ceramic vessel, a copper tube, and an iron rod. The find dates back to the Parthian or Sassanid Empire, Akreshu 150 BC 650 AD, and its purpose remains a mystery. The most intriguing hypothesis was put forward by Wilhelm Koenig, director of the National Museum of Iraq in the 1930s. He suggested that these artifacts could have functioned as an ancient galvanic cell, a prototype battery. According to this theory, an acid or alkali such as wine vinegar could have been poured into the vessel, which would have caused an electric current to flow between the copper and iron. Koenig suggested that such a device could have been used for galvanic coating of metals or even for electrotherapy. However, this theory remains controversial, as there is no direct evidence of the use of the Baghdad battery for such purposes. Alternative versions suggest that the artifact could have simply been a container for storing sacred scrolls or other items and is not related to electricity. Archaeologists and historians still cannot accurately explain the use of the Baghdad battery. Perhaps in the future this mystery will be revealed. Treasure Cave. Archaeologists from the National Institute of Anthropology and History of Mexico discovered ancient hunting tools in the Cueva del Tesoro cave, located in the state of Querétaro. The cave was named Treasure Cave for the huge number of ancient artifacts. Speleologists exploring the cave discovered a hidden cavity where archaeologists found ancient hunting tools, including an atlatl and wooden darts. The atlatl, an ancient javelin thrower, was used in Mesoamerica and other regions of the world. This device increased the range and accuracy of throwing darts, as well as the speed and destructive power of the spear. In addition to the atlatl, processed logs were found in the cavity, which may have served as multifunctional tools. Preliminary dating of the artifacts indicates that they belong to the 1st century AD, meaning that they were hidden in a niche approximately 1900 years ago.
Forgotten Roman City. In central Italy, archaeologists have uncovered the true appearance of the ancient Roman city of Interamna Lirenas. Initially considered a small settlement, it turned out to be a metropolis, home to about 2,000 people. Situated between Rome and Naples, this city flourished during the Roman Republic and had the support of Julius Caesar, but was abandoned in the 6th century due to the threat of invasion. Archaeologists from the University of Cambridge, led by Dr. Alessandro Lonaro, have been conducting research here since 2010. Their results shattered stereotypes, showing that Interamna Lirenas was not just a city, but a cultural and commercial center of the region. There were residential buildings, a temple, baths, and an indoor marble theater that could accommodate 1,500 spectators. Research has shown that there was no social division in the city. There were houses of different sizes, courtyard buildings presumably serving different purposes. It is important that the city was not destroyed by a catastrophe, like Pompeii or Herculaneum. People abandoned it in the 6th century due to increased uncertainty about the security of the region. This event coincided with the Lombard invasion.
Vintage time capsule. Experienced treasure hunter Jane Eastman recently made an unusual discovery at the bottom of a river in England. She found a Victorian glass bottle filled with pickles. Jane showed this amazing treasure to her Instagram followers, where her find caused a heated discussion. The bottle, made of green water glass, was in excellent condition, and its lid with the inscription W&D Harvest Dowgate Dock London prompted Jane to research its history. She found out that W&D Harvest was a company selling spices and pickles in London since the 1870s, and the bottle she found probably dates back to the period 1890 to 1910. According to Jane, the bottle was completely sealed, so the pickles were preserved. The woman called it a real time capsule and decided not to open the find to preserve it in its original condition. To do this, she sealed the lid with sealing wax. Long pickle jars were popular in the Victorian era due to their practicality. The only thing that is not yet clear is whether the cucumbers remained edible.
The largest Anglo-Saxon cemetery. In Wendover, Buckinghamshire, archaeologists working on the HS2 railway site have discovered a giant Anglo-Saxon cemetery containing rich burials from the 5th and 6th centuries.
The cemetery contains 138 graves, including 141 inhumations and 5 cremations, and traces of Neolithic, Bronze, Iron Age, and Roman activity. Many burials contain brooches on the collarbones, indicating clothing such as cloaks or peplos. A pair of small square brooches similar to the famous Chesil Down brooch were also found. Of particular interest was a woman buried with a large number of valuable items, including a glass bowl of Roman origin, copper alloy rings, a silver zoomorphic ring, brooches, and ivory items. Some items may have been imported from abroad, including amber beads and various materials. 2 glass conical goblets similar to vessels from northern France were also found. The discovery provides a unique insight into the lifestyle and culture of Anglo-Saxon Britain. An ancient toy for adults. The artifact, which is already more than 2,000 years old, was found in Great Britain back in 1992. Initially, archaeologists assumed that this wooden object was used as a sewing tool. However, further study suggested that it could be an ancient sexual device. Most scientists agree that the wooden object found is in the shape of a phallus. The uniqueness of this artifact is that it has not changed its shape and method of use even after thousands of years. And the most interesting thing is that its shape will not change in the future for obvious reasons. However, there are several versions regarding the use of this artifact. As a sex toy. Based on Roman images, it is known that they had dildos, but they rarely came down to us because they were most often made from organic materials. Also, some archaeologists suggest that slave owners could use such an object to inflict pain and demonstrate power over slaves. Others believe it could have been a good luck charm. Indeed, in ancient times, amulets of this shape were very common. As a final option, it could be used as a mortar for grinding or mixing spices and other materials used for culinary or medicinal purposes.
Ritual axe 4,500 years old. In China, in the city of Wuxi, archaeologists have discovered an ancient ritual weapon, an engraved axe that is 4,500 years old. The axe belongs to the Liangzhu culture, one of the most developed cultures in China at that time. This culture lived in the Yangtze River Delta, but when the floods occurred, the people of Liangzhu were forced to leave their capital and settlements. This led to their complete extinction around 2300 BC. Scientists have found 329 stone tools, 73 stone and bone arrows, and many other ceramic and jade artifacts. The most interesting is the axe, on which images of tigers, patterns of clouds, and birds are engraved on both sides. The axe was found on a sacrificial platform and shows signs of wear and damage. Scientists believe that the axe was not used in battles, but in rituals and ceremonies to symbolize power. Liu Baoshan, head of the local archaeological institute, said the patterns on the axe were made with a harder stone tool. This is the first tiger engraved axe found in the region. Now we will dive into history even deeper and find out what our ancestors ate more than 100,000 years ago.
The mysterious pyramids of Sitiang. This complex, discovered by archaeologists at the end of the 20th century, includes more than 80 pyramids, making it one of the largest burial sites in the Nubian Desert in Sudan. The Seeing pyramids were built during the period when Nubia was under the influence of ancient Egypt, and the rulers of the Kush kingdom sought to imitate Egyptian traditions and architecture. Most of the Seeing pyramids are small in size compared to Egyptian pyramids, the average height of which is between 3 and 7 meters. They were built of sandstone and brick and were used as burial places for nobles and members of the ruling elite. Archaeologists have found ceramics, jewelry, and the remains of mummies in these pyramids, which indicates the high level of skill of Nubian artisans. One of the mysteries of the Seeing pyramids is their large number in a relatively small area, which makes this complex unique. The construction of such a large number of pyramids may indicate the important religious and cultural significance of this place for the ancient Nubians. Stonehenge was also the site of the cult of the goddess Hathor, who played a key role in the religious life of Nubia. Medieval Curse of the Devil. In Germany, archaeologists made a unique discovery during the construction of the town hall in Rostock. On the site of a former cesspool next to a 14th century house considered one of the most beautiful in northern Germany, a 15th century tablet with a curse was discovered. The text on the tablet is written in Gothic script, common from the 12th to the 17th centuries. Engraved on it are the words, Sathanas Talki Beelzebub Henrik Berith, addressed to Taleka and Heinrich, Henrik. These curse tablets, created from thin sheets of lead, were popular during the Greco-Roman period. They were used to appeal to God's spirits or the dead with requests to influence people or objects. This find in Rostock is especially rare because of the mention of Beelzebub, another name for the devil. Such curses could be used to break off relationships due to unhappy love, jealousy, or the desire to bring trouble to the people mentioned in the curse. 2,000-year-old fig. Irish archaeologists have made a surprising discovery when they found the charred remains of a 2,000-year-old fig tree on Drumnach Point north of Dublin. The find is important evidence that the Roman Empire, which once considered Ireland untouchable, did have an impact on its culture. Drumnach Point was a key point of contact between Ireland and Roman-ruled England. The fig was the most surprising of the finds made by researchers from University College Dublin. The seeds of the fruit confirm that it was brought to the island at a time when such exotic fruits were considered rare. Figs had previously only been found in medieval strata in Ireland, but this is the oldest known. As well as the figs, traces of spelt were found, a grain widely consumed in Roman Britain but rare in Ireland. The finds show that the Romans not only traded goods but also transferred lifestyles. Archaeologist Christine Baker said that the people of Ireland at the time enjoyed spelt bread, olive oil, wine in used glass, and ceramic dishes, brooches, and beads. Figs, first grown in eastern Turkey and northern India, were carried by ancient trade routes to the Mediterranean, where they became an important part of the Roman diet. Researchers believe that figs and spelt may have been brought through Roman Chester, a major trading post in Britain. The history of the burial of an ancient Egyptian prince. In a cemetery in Middlebury, Vermont, there is an unusual grave that stands out from the rest. This is believed to be the burial place of the Egyptian prince Amun-Kher-Hepesh-Efa, who was born in 1881 BC during the Middle Kingdom of Egypt and died at the age of 2.5 years. His father, Senvose III, later became pharaoh and ruled during the 12th dynasty, famous for his military campaigns and the construction of the Sesostris Canal. The boy's mummy was likely taken from Egypt by grave robbers during the Victorian era and eventually ended up in the collection of a 19th century American museum. Henry Sheldon, a collector and founder of the Vermont History Museum, acquired the mummy from Spanish sailors and stored it in his museum's attic due to its poor condition. After Sheldon's death in 1907, the mummy remained unclaimed until 1945, when museum director George Meade decided to cremate the decayed remains and bury them in the cemetery to avoid possible student vandalism. The tombstone is decorated with a Christian cross surrounded by the Egyptian symbols Ankh and Ba, symbolizing life and spirit. The mythical gold mine. In 1929, Australia found its Indiana Jones, Lewis Harold Bell Lassiter. He claimed that 3 decades earlier he had discovered a huge gold reef in the heart of the continent. There was almost no evidence, but rumors of a missing Klondike excited prospectors and historians. In 1930, Lassiter managed to assemble an expedition and set off into the outback again. He was accompanied by a pilot, 2 prospectors, Aboriginal guides, and even a representative of the governor. However, Lassiter was sullen, confused in his stories, and reluctant to show the way. Having reached Mount Marjorie, he declared that they were lost. His companions considered him an imposter and left. Lassiter was left with only a hunter, but soon the hunter also abandoned him. As a result, Harold continued on his way alone. A year later, he was found dead in a cave. According to his diary, he died of exhaustion after spending his last months among the natives trying to survive. Meanwhile, the legend of the reef did not die out. Numerous prospectors combed the McDonnell Range in the hope of finding gold. The press discussed the mysterious Swede Olaf Johansson, who allegedly also knew the way to the treasure. Later, books and films appeared. Director Luke Walker in the project Lassiter's Bones found letters from Harold mentioning that same Olaf and hinting at the lost reef. Modern research has not confirmed large deposits in the designated area, although geologist Bill DeCarly came across a quartz layer reminiscent of Lassiter's description. He believes that Harold was just retelling other people's stories. Nevertheless, the mystery of the treasure continues to excite the minds of romantics and gold hunters.
General's gold jewelry. In 2020, a huge trove of gold artifacts was found in Vindelev, Denmark, dating back to pre-Viking age migrations. The finds included 23 gold objects, including 13 5th-century bracteates, gold fittings possibly from weapons, and 4 4th-century Roman medallions. Particularly noteworthy is the runic inscribed bracteate, the largest ever found, containing a reference to Odin, a key figure in Norse mythology. Research into these medallions has shed light on possible cultural and social connections between Vindelev and other regions of Europe. It is assumed that the medallions could serve as wedding ransoms or high gifts in elite circles. These gold medallions were probably worn by women as pendants, indicating the high status of their owner, who carried weight both locally and internationally. The peculiarity of these medallions is that they were given to prominent Roman figures such as senators and generals, and their presence in Vindelev, far from the Roman Empire, underscores the importance of this find.
Innovative saddle of the ancient Mongols. A unique saddle with a wooden frame and iron stirrups was found in Mongolia, which may be the oldest in the world. In 2015, Mongolian police confiscated several artifacts, including this saddle, painted black and red, as well as an iron bit, a wooden bow rig, and the mummified remains of a horse. These objects were found in a cave known as the Horseman's Cave, where the bones of a man dressed in sheep and badger skins were also found. According to a recent study using DNA analysis, it was determined that the rider was a man and the animal was a domestic horse. Radiocarbon dating has shown that the saddle was made around 420 AD, making it the oldest known frame saddle. The rigid frame saddle significantly improved the rider's stability when riding, including while standing, freeing up his hands for sword fighting. Lost Bible text. Archaeologists have found a unique 5th-century amulet in Turkey depicting King Solomon defeating the devil. The 1600-year-old bronze pendant is engraved with the ancient Greek inscription, "Our Lord has defeated the devil." This artifact may be related to a lost Bible text that speaks of Solomon's magical powers. Sources claim that during the 1st–5th centuries, there was a text called the Testament of Solomon, which was not included in the canon. In this text, Archangel Michael gives Solomon a magic ring that allows him to control demons. The amulet confirms that Solomon was perceived not only as a wise king, but also as a champion of evil. The artifact was discovered among the ruins of an ancient military structure in Adrianople, modern Edirne. The amulet probably belonged to a soldier who believed in Solomon's magical protection. The reverse side of the pendant is engraved with the names of the archangels, Azrael, Israfel, Gabriel, and Michael. This symbolizes protection from evil, uniting the traditions of different religions. Azrael is known as the angel of death in Judaism and Islam. Israfel is the herald of the end of the world, blowing the trumpet on the day of judgment. Gabriel and Michael are widely revered in Christianity. The first is the messenger of God, the second is a spiritual warrior. All these names enhance the protective meaning of the amulet. The amulet with Solomon is not just a historical find, it demonstrates how legends and religious traditions intertwine in different eras. The figure of Solomon unites three world religions, remaining a symbol of wisdom and strength. What did the rich eat in ancient Rome? Ancient Rome was a powerful empire that greatly influenced the life of mankind. Even now, much of what has become commonplace for us came to us from ancient Rome. Concrete roads and highways, stitched books and plumbing, delivery service and newspapers, heated floors and graffiti. But the Caesar salad, which almost every person on our planet knows about, has nothing to do with the Emperor Julius Caesar. The only thing is that this salad was invented by an Italian in 1903. So what did people eat in ancient Rome then, if they didn't have Caesar salad on the table? The Romans woke up early, at 6 a.m. Then they also had breakfast with bread with date fruits and honey, which they washed down with wine. Also for breakfast, they could eat up the food that remained after dinner and also drink wine. At about 11 a.m. they ate meat with bread and cheese. The most important meal was at lunchtime. The Romans had a three-course meal: eggs, shellfish, or meat with olives, washed down with wine diluted with water. Honey was added to this drink as a sweetener. Then they served meat or fish. The Roman elite ate more exquisitely. They roasted a whole pig or an exotic bird, an ostrich or a peacock. Of course, not without fruits and nuts. Almost never a single meal was complete without their favorite garum sauce. They made it from small fish and fish waste, which were mixed with vinegar, salt, and wine. It was the most popular sauce in ancient Rome, and each region had its own recipe. As you already understood, wine in ancient Rome flowed like a river. It seems to me that if they had tea bags, then they would also brew tea and wine with the addition of honey. For dinner, the Romans often invited guests to their home, with whom they could sit at the table for good 4 hours. And after the end of these gatherings, guests could take the rest of the food home with them. The owner of the house regarded this as a compliment. Before going to bed, they also had a meal. It was fruit with bread. From all of the above, we can conclude that the ancient Romans loved to eat and drink wine. And when they were engaged in the development of their state and the conquest of new lands, well, this is a whole different story.
Lost part of the statue of Ramesses II. In 1930, German archaeologist Gunther Raeder discovered in Egypt the lower part of a statue of Ramesses II, known as Ramesses the Great, who reigned from 1279 to 1213 BC. The statue was split and its upper part remained lost for centuries. After a long search, the upper part of the statue was finally found in Hermopolis, which was turned into an open-air museum. The discovery was made thanks to the efforts of archaeologists from Egypt and the United States during excavations in Hermopolis, which is located near Al-Ashmunin. Hermopolis was one of the main religious centers of antiquity, dedicated to the god of wisdom Thoth. The upper part of the statue, 3.8 meters long, discovered under layers of sand, depicts the pharaoh wearing a traditional cobra headdress. The statue is made of limestone, with hieroglyphs glorifying Ramesses II engraved on its back. The find also contained traces of ancient paint, which will enable scientists to accurately date the creation of the statue and establish its origin. Ramesses II is known as one of the greatest pharaohs in the history of ancient Egypt. During his long life, he built many significant structures and strengthened Egypt's military and diplomatic power. Ritual cocktail composition. For the first time, scientists have been able to study the organic remains inside an ancient vessel that is 2,000 years old. The study has shown that the ancient Egyptians consumed a special ritual cocktail that included fruits, nuts, alcohol, biological fluids, and psychotropic substances. The vessel, known as the Bees mug, was studied using innovative technology developed by scientists from the University of South Florida together with colleagues from Italy. This is the first time that it has been possible to identify the full chemical composition of a ritual drink, including its psychotropic and medicinal components. Bees mugs were dedicated to the Egyptian god of the same name, the patron of fertility, healing, and protection. He was depicted with a crown of feathers, large eyes, and a tail. Such vessels were used from the 16th century BC to the 5th century AD, and the specimen under study dates back to the Ptolemaic period. The analysis showed traces of honey, grapes, sesame, pine nuts, licorice, and hallucinogenic components. Scientists assumed that the mixture was used in magical rituals. People were looking for confirmation of a successful pregnancy because in ancient times it was considered a dangerous and unpredictable process. Such a cocktail probably caused visions, helping to establish a connection with the deity.
Italian underground city. Perched atop a volcanic rock formation in Umbria, Italy, the city of Orvieto mesmerizes visitors with its subterranean wonders. Beneath the city's streets lies a complex network of more than 1,200 caves, wells, tunnels, and galleries that reveal Orvieto's rich history. The Etruscans inhabited the site as early as the 9th century BC, and many of the underground features, such as the cisterns and tombs, date back to that time. Of particular note is the impressive St. Patrick's Well, Pozzo di San Patrizio. Built in 1537, it goes to a depth of 62 meters and is a shining example of Renaissance engineering. From ancient wineries to pigeon breeding grounds, the underground city of Orvieto offers an incredible journey through time. Victim of the Curse of Pompeii. An unusual phenomenon is happening in the Pompeii Archaeological Park. Tourists are returning stolen artifacts and asking for forgiveness, believing that a curse has fallen on them after the theft. One of the last letters received by Gabriel Zuchtriegel, the director of the park, aroused great interest. The woman in the letter apologized for taking the stones from Pompeii and talked about her illness, breast cancer, which she was diagnosed with a year after the visit. She admitted that she did not know about the curse and asked to return the stones to their historical place. Zuchtriegel published a photo of the letter on social networks, noting that the stones had returned home and wished the sender good luck. He stressed that the theft of artifacts is a crime that the park is required to report to authorities. According to Zuchtriegel, hundreds of similar letters with apologies and stories about the curse are being received. Many claim that after the theft of artifacts from Pompeii, misfortunes befell them, illnesses, and financial difficulties. In 2020, a Canadian woman returned mosaic tiles, an amphora, and a fragment of ceramics that she had stolen 15 years ago. In the letter, she spoke about 2 cases of breast cancer and financial problems. Nicole explained that she wanted to own a unique piece of history, but now believes that the artifacts contain negative energy. What do you think it was? Did these artifacts really have the magical power of a curse? Or was it karma that overtook the plunderers of antiquity? Write your opinion in the comments under the video.
Betrayal that cost lives. The story of Anne Frank has always been a symbol of innocence destroyed for me, but recently I learned details that made this story even more terrifying. All this time, it was believed that Anne and her family were betrayed by accident. One of the neighbors, a denunciation, a coincidence. But the latest research says otherwise. In 2022, a group of historians came to the conclusion that most likely Anne Frank's hiding place was given away by the Jewish notary Arnold Vandenberg, a man who himself tried to save his family by giving out the addresses of other hiding places to the Nazis. When I learned about this, the first feeling was shock, but then came understanding. This is not just the tragedy of an individual family. This is a cross-section of the entire reality created by the Reich. A reality where fear is stronger than memory, where survival becomes betrayal, where even those who were supposed to be together end up on different sides. Anne Frank died in the Bergen-Belsen camp in February 1945, just a few weeks before the end of the war. Her diary outlived her and became one of the most honest documents of that time, because Anna wrote about simple things, dreams, grievances, hopes, about the life that was stolen from her by those who tried to build a world without pity. By the way, I was in this camp personally last year. Almost nothing is left of it. Only the foundations of the barracks in which the prisoners lived. Everything else is gone. After the liberation of the camp, the British troops burned it to the ground. No buildings, no barracks, no photographs, only empty space. Perhaps this was done intentionally, to wipe the horror from the face of the earth, or so that no one could figure it out completely, and only the pines around, tall, gloomy, they remember. They were planted back when all this was happening. I'm not trying to build a single version. Everything we've discussed is not a theory, but traces, scraps, what remained on the surface, although it should have disappeared. The Nazis were not just looking for weapons. They wanted power that would look like a continuation of something ancient, almost eternal. What they created went beyond war. In symbols, artifacts, technologies, they tried to rewrite reality itself. I don't know how much of this was a game, how much was conviction, and how much fear. But I know one thing. All this cannot be simply forgotten, because too much of it feels like it's coming back, only under different names. Thanks for watching. Bye, everyone.